Okay, do you...
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Bumblefoot. Bumblefoot.
Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys. They let us think that we're big boys. They let us make a louder noise, but we ain't rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. For you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
Alright.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hiya! Toby! Bye-bye! Love you! Bye-bye!
Tickets, please take your seat above us. There will be exits. Prepare for pickup. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and liftoff.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. It's good to have you along for the ride on the 4th of July this Tuesday, or Wednesday, July 5th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. I hope you had a great day and night. Partying it up, America. I hope you did it well and safe. We are live right here in the Great White North on top of the mountains of central British Columbia as we are here 7 days a week. We welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial stations, WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Newnan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on spacedoutradio.com, our brand new look as of today, so I hope you check it out. Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. If you like our theme music, get your horns up for Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, our resident guitar god, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of this show. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Stitcher, and Player.fm. Our website, of course, is SpacedOutRadio.com. And if you head over to Patreon.com for as little as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SOR as well. Now, if you want to take part in this show, we don't take phone calls, well, because I don't have a call screener. I'm cheap that way. But nonetheless, you can sign into one of our chat rooms. You can go on Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the UPRN chat room, or join on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I will get to your questions and comments in there as well. Now, if you head to our brand new look website, for $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler, and you can head to our store, pick up t-shirts. Our store is going to be expanding here soon because today is the new look. So we're going to be adding a really cool store to it. You can get VIP passes for our Paracon this fall, September 29th to October 1st. It's an exciting time around here. We also have the Encounter Online that deals with everything paranormal, courtesy of our editors, Eric Markham and Everett Thiemer. You can check out my latest blog there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. And also, make sure you check out Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers. He is on the hunt for everything strange. He's helping out the Encounter. He helped build our website. Tim, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much. And make sure you check out Tim's website as well, ufoseekers.com, as he is teamed up officially with Spaced Out Radio. The second Tuesday of every month, we are joined by intuitive healer Elizabeth April, who joins us from her home in Toronto for her monthly segment called The Spiritual You. Young in age, but old as in wise in spirit and in heart. Elizabeth brings a refreshing and confident look at how you can connect with yourself. One of the topics that is of learning interest of Elizabeth is a topic of telepathy as a communication device. Can we send people messages via the form of thought? It's a question that has baffled even the best of researchers over centuries. So, who can we believe in? Can we believe telepathy is real? Some say we can. Others, well, not so much. And what about pendulums as communication devices? Do they work for those on the other side in communication? And who are we really communicating with? All the way from Toronto, Ontario, Elizabeth April for her monthly segment, the first Tuesday of every month. Seems like just yesterday I talked to you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks so much for having me back. I'm excited for tonight's show.
Well, you know what? I am very, very excited to have you because of the fact that, you know, there just seems, ever since you came on this show, there just seems to be that connection, man. There totally seems that connection. And, you know, you connected with our listeners right off the bat. And when they say, Dave, you got to bring her back, well, this is what it's tuned into right off the bat. What it's tuned into. You still having fun with this? I guess so, since you're here.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the questions and obviously the host, all really great and very stimulating, you know. It's quite rare to find people who ask me questions that don't necessarily bore me. So I'm just as, excited and enthralled and ready to learn as all of you. So.
I'm glad by that. I'm very glad by that because, you're kind of one of us now. We've stole you. We've stole you away, so that way, yes, I know you're sneaking off to do other shows and cheating on us, but that's okay. That's okay. We have you once a month, and we're so proud to have you here. So recently, you actually took part in the Alien Cosmic Expo in Toronto. How was that event?
Yeah, it was fantastic. There was a lot of great individuals there, both speakers and participants, and it was a jam-packed 3 days full of stories and experiences, and connecting to like-minded individuals. And it was so interesting because Pride was the same weekend in Toronto. And so I have a lot of, friends in the LGBTQ community, and they're like, "Oh, Elizabeth, you have to come out to Pride. This is our family. I feel like I'm at home here." And I said, "Well, you got to come out to the Alien Expo. I feel like I'm at home here. This is my family." And it's so true. It's so rare these days, and I'm sure that your listeners could agree to find individuals who don't look at you weird when you say that you believe in aliens and you believe in energy and you believe in things like telepathy and astral travel. And so it was so refreshing to not have to really worry about what I say and how I say it and who I'm going to offend or affect, because everyone's just so open to listen and to learn. And exactly that. It was so refreshing, but I think I was talking so much that by the end of the weekend, I almost lost my voice. So I had to kind of hone it in by the end and give myself, some downtime.
Well, you know what? It's funny because we were just having that same conversation around here recently where, a good friend of mine who I met recently, her name is Tess. She does a lot of tarot card readings in my town. And I was talking with her on Saturday, and she was actually saying, how she had been lonely in this community because there's not a lot of people who come out about their spirituality or do what she does. And she was like, I'm so happy, Dave, that I've got to know you and members of your team because I don't feel alone anymore. I don't feel like I can hold this in on my own. And do you find that as well, that you have a tough time communicating with people because, let's face it, everybody has that human fear of being judged?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to really struggle with kind of finding my own footing just in general in life, especially since I'm so young and, a lot of the millennials of this generation aren't interested in spirituality. They're interested in social media and celebrities and music and things like that. So, but eventually, I ended up finding my community, and I actually find that there's a huge hub of high vibrational spiritual individuals in Ontario, especially in Toronto. So there's this huge energy vortex that just pulls us all in. But what I really find that I have to be consciously aware of in this community in Ontario is actually false prophets. So I have no problem now finding like-minded individuals, but what I do have a problem with is people who are projecting the fact that they are a part of this spiritual community to belong to something when they don't actually understand the core foundational concepts of these universal truths that I believe in. So it's one thing to really get it, and it's one thing to actually live it. And I find that a lot of people are projecting it just to kind of fit in. So it's so interesting because in this community, I feel like it's the opposite. Like people are actually projecting this spirituality in order to try and fit into some sort of group. But I mean, for someone like me who's so sensitive and empathic, it's very easy for me to tell who is, spiritually authentic and who is completely projecting something that they maybe read in a book or that they learned somewhere else. And I think that for other people, especially since everyone's kind of waking up to their own spirituality and their own energetic abilities, it's very easy for other people to now discern between who is spiritually authentic and living that and who is this false prophet. And that's why I think a lot of people resonate with me, is because, you know, this is who I am. Like, I'm not projecting any of these beliefs. This is just truly what I live and what I know and what I've experienced. So, and that's why I always tell people, you know, you can take it or leave it. If you haven't had the same experience or something similar, then you might not understand where I'm coming from or how I gained access to this information. So, you know, in Toronto, especially now, I feel like, you know, there's this role reversal. And now it's not, you know, trying to find these people. It's actually discerning, you know, who is authentic and who is not. So, I mean, there's always, in every level of community, there's always some sort of hurdle to overcome.
So for people who are out there, Elizabeth, who are searching for that psychic person who has the answers, or maybe a mediumship, or just looking for some sort of intuitive healing or help, how do people know who is good and who is not? Because you can sit here and say, you know, I'm honest, I get these messages, I want to help people, but there's a lot of people out there saying that exact same thing, and the skeptics out there will say, well, if one's bad, they're probably mostly bad. Mm-hmm. You know, so how do you redefine yourself to stand above and beyond so people know that they're not getting a fraud?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, in this field, that's the most difficult thing, is how to prove the fact that I am authentic and that I do receive these messages. Really, the only way to prove that is through testimonials and through clients who pretty much, mention their sessions with me. But above all else, it comes down to your own intuition. It comes down to your own feeling. And what I like to tell people is that go to my YouTube channel and watch my YouTube videos. And if that resonates with you, then absolutely a full one-on-one session is going to resonate with you. But if there's something in those videos that irritates you or frustrates you or triggers you, then guaranteed having a session with me probably isn't going to be the best thing. So it's actually really easy to tell someone's vibrational frequency through something like video or audio even, but through just a picture or just through words on a website, it's very difficult to discern for many people. And even I myself, when I was younger, I know I'm still young, but when I was younger, I was searching for answers left, right, and center because I didn't think that I could find them within myself. And I wasted a lot of money, and I went to a lot of people who I didn't resonate with. But it's like every profession. I mean, you hire a mechanic, you expect to get certain services, and not every mechanic is going to deliver the same results. It's like any profession. So, you know, how do you find that? And what I would actually recommend to other people is that just saying that not every psychic or medium or card reader is going to do the same for you as it, say, does for a friend or a family member of yours. So once again, it's all individual. And what I usually recommend is just kind of feeling it out. So asking yourself, like, what am I looking for? What do I want? Because the field of energy work is so expansive and there's so many different modalities, you can get totally lost. And if you're looking to connect to a loved one and yet you get a card reader who doesn't do that, then all of a sudden your expectations are going to lead to disappointments. So you have to ask, what am I looking for? What do I need? What do I want? If you're just looking for someone to solve your problems and kind of take you on to the next step, then you probably want someone like me who's very diverse, who can kind of do it all. But once again, it comes down to your resonation, your vibration, your intuition. Does this person resonate with you? Yes or no? And actually, kind of interesting story with that. So I had a picture posted on the Alien Cosmic Expo website. So this was just because I was a featured speaker. And I had multiple people come up to me or even send me emails and tell me that that they didn't like the picture. And so one lady said that, oh yeah, it was... what did she say? She used a really, really terrible word. It was, oh yeah, repulsive. She said that picture was repulsive. It repulsed her. I'm like, oh, that's a really strong word. And granted, you know, I'm not smiling in it, right? And it's a very strong, confident, you know, what I think is strong and confident, but it could be perceived by other people as, yeah, maybe like a spiritual ego. And so, a couple of people were like, your picture really didn't resonate with me. It didn't sit well with me. But when I went into your YouTube channel and I watched some of your videos, they're like, my opinion of you completely changed. And, I saw that, how easygoing and down to earth you were and all of that. So, it really depends on the person and their vibration and what they feel. But try not to base it off of one picture or one bio. Do your research, get into it, and ask yourself really what you're looking for.
And I think that's important because the person who you choose to get a reading from or something along those lines, you really, really need to have a feel for them and trust that own intuition. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That's what it comes down to, is your own intuition, right?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people don't know what that feeling is. That's why they're seeking out the help.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's why they're seeking out people such as yourself in order to try and figure out what the hell is going on in their lives. So how do people find that voice, that intuitive side that they may not know they have? Because they're so intent on trying to find the answers, maybe to a loved one who's on the other side, or just trying to figure out, are they cursed with bad luck? Because there's a lot of people these days who are walking around like that. So how do you go about telling them to find that inner voice, to find out who is right or wrong for you? Because you may actually have clients who absolutely love and respect you, but feel you're not for them, and vice versa.
Yep, absolutely. I don't get that too often, which is really good. Clients who feel that I'm not for them, just because I am so diverse in what I do. Like, I've really strived in this lifetime to be, well, in many lives, to be as well-rounded as possible. But really what intuition comes down to, if you're feeling it out, for your own self, whether it be you choosing a psychic or a medium or a tarot card reader, or you're just choosing what to eat that night, what it comes down to is either a positive or a negative feeling or reaction, right? Now, the problem is that when people are so desperate for information, and it happens to the best of us, myself included, but when we're so needing something in our lives, that need for something, for those answers, for that, validation, it actually overpowers our intuition altogether. And I actually consider that need or that desperation your ego, right? So your ego is looking for something. But the more and more our ego attaches to something that we need or something that we want in our lives, the further and further our true and authentic intuition gets. So the number one thing that I can tell people, if they really want to tap into their own intuition, is let go of the ego, let go of the attachment, let go of the reaction, let go of the expectation, and ask yourself if this person or this food makes you feel positive or negative. So say, for example, when someone's thinking about my name, Elizabeth April, does that make you feel, excited and maybe butterflies and, happy and joyous and full of love? Or, does my name make you feel like a dreading sensation or anxiety or nervous or scared, So what is the reaction from your body? Some people have an immediate thought reaction. Some people have a feeling, an emotion, and some people have a physical reaction. Some people get pains in their body when they think about something that's not good for them. Some people get like a nauseous stomach when they think about something that's not good for them. So it really comes down to your reaction, but you can't be aware of the reaction of your body, spirit, or mind unless you let go of that ego, unless you let go of that attachment. So let go of the distraction and then ask yourself, does this person, does this thing in my life serve me, yes or no? And usually your body and your emotions will tell you right away if it does or doesn't. And if right away you don't get that answer, then there's something else going on in your mind that's distracting you, and you need to quiet your thoughts.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I don't know if you'll feel comfortable answering this, but if you are, God bless you for it. Out of all the psychic mediums out there, hypothetically, how many do you think are real compared to fraud on a percentage?
Okay.
Would you say it's 50-50?
Okay. You know what? I would actually say I'm going to go out on a limb here and just kind of use my own intuition. And I've never really done this or put it in a percentage. Now, originally, I've always thought that there were more frauds than not. But to be honest, you know, in the past 5 years, in the past year, in the past 2 years, this awakening, this energy, this conscious vibrational frequency increase has actually been bringing the spiritual energy and abilities out in people exponentially. Right now, if I were to just clean it up into a percentage, I would actually say that there would be 60% of the real, quote unquote, real psychics and 40% of the fake psychics. Now, I'm just putting that out there. And I also want to say that there are different levels as well. Just because there's 60% that are legit doesn't necessarily mean they're good or that they're going to give you what you need. Right? So like, I think that there's a lot of people who have spiritual abilities and energetic insights, but I don't think that a lot of them know how to control it or direct it or even really get what that person is asking. But I think that, I mean, spiritual growth among many individuals is exponential. And eventually I want to actually get to the point where I don't have to do one-on-one sessions anymore because everyone has come to their own conclusions and received the information for themselves, right? So that's kind of where my position is that I don't just want to be a psychic for the rest of my life and help other people with their information. I actually want to help other people understand that they too are psychic and they too can gain access to these abilities and they too can receive all of the information that I can. And that's really my position here, is just empowering other people to empower themselves to understand that they are just as powerful. So eventually I want to be out of this job altogether. And that right there, that would be serving my mission on this planet.
That was a very profound answer. I was not expecting. You caught me off guard. You totally caught me off guard. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries.
So when we come to communication, and we're kind of leading into the whole topic of telepathy for tonight, you know, there's a lot of ways people communicate or want to communicate. People have tried Ouija boards for centuries. Other people use pendulums or dowsing rods. Other people use psychic mediums. Other people, especially ghost hunters from today, they're using more of a technological stance. Does any of it, in your opinion, really work?
Okay, that's a good question. Now, once again, it's not this cut and dry kind of thing. I mean, with energy, it's a gray area. All of energy is a gray area. There is no black and white. And the reason being is because everyone has the ability to gain access to energy. So, you know, a pendulum might work for one person and it might totally not work for another person, right? Same thing with the Ouija board and these other kind of technological devices like ghost hunters use and things like that. So once again, everything is going to resonate with people on a different level. But I do fully and wholeheartedly believe and have experienced that everyone has the capacity to be telepathic in their own right. So there are tons of tools out there for us to communicate to the other side. And, you know, I've experienced many of them and I totally trust and believe in a lot of them. Same thing with tarot cards. Tarot cards are a great way to access information from the other side. But that being said, I also very strongly believe that every physical tool that we have to gain access to energy is only a stepping stone for us to gain access to pure source energy ourselves, right? So for me, in being able to channel without having any sort of tools or the need for tools, I find that those kind of tools like the pendulum or tarot cards or these other devices like Ouija boards only actually get in the way from me accessing the purest form of, you know, telepathy. So I would say that for everyone, they should start experiencing these tools, but don't attach yourself to them. There's so much more going on than just what a tarot card can read for you or what the pendulum can tell you with yes or no answers or what a Ouija board can spell out for you. What it really comes down to is you straight up asking for the answers yourself and then receiving them. And I believe everyone has that ability. Now, although it takes everyone different lengths of time to get there, And these tools are really sufficient at helping people. So would I say that, there's one tool that's better than the other? No, I would say that every tool is different for every individual. But I mean, speaking about these tools, I wouldn't recommend one particular tool, and that would be the Ouija board. So if there was any tool that I'd be like, maybe you should stay away from that one, it would be the Ouija board. Now, I know that there's, mixed views and controversy and probably a lot of people who believe a lot of different things. But I also know that Ouija boards, when used improperly, can open up portals, energetic portals, and these portals can bring in the wrong energy, especially for people who are not really fully aware of how to use it and maybe use it as a game or kind of like a mockery. That's when you can really start dabbling with some lower vibrational frequency energy. So that's we can talk about all the tools, we can talk about Ouija boards, but if I were to just kind of put a word of caution out there, I'd say probably stay away from the Ouija board.
That surprises me because I don't see a real difference between communication with, say, I use a pendulum. Yep. And I don't see the difference between using a pendulum or using a Ouija.
Yeah, I mean, when you just kind of look at them objectively, no, there's not really a difference. But unless you are a very skilled energetic craftsman and you're using a Ouija, then absolutely go for it. You know what you're doing and you know what you're getting into. But for a lot of people who are just unaware, to be honest, when I think about it, same thing goes with pendulum. I just find that the pendulum is a little bit different. It depends because it's usually an item that is closer to your vibrational frequency. So this is where we get into the different vibrations, right? So a Ouija board is usually something very external to an individual person. Therefore, the energy that comes through a Ouija can be very external. It can be very disconnected. It can come from pretty much anywhere. You're just calling upon anything if you're not experienced. So anything will come through. When you're using something a little bit more personal, especially if that pendulum is made of crystal, crystal alone is a higher vibrational frequency, which means that the only energies or entities or spirits who are able to come through that crystal, come through that pendulum, are actually only higher vibrational entities or spirits. The other thing too is if you use a pendulum, and I know some people use their personal items. So say, for example, you got a chain and you put a ring on it, you could actually use that as a pendulum. Now that ring is personal to you, which means that it shares your vibrational frequency energy. And as long as your vibrational frequency is high enough, you're only going to be calling in the vibration that matches your frequency. This is the difference between pretty much any other tool that you would say use and something like a Ouija board. Ouija boards are very external to you, and that being said, you can really call upon any energy, positive or negative. And in my experience, with people who are inexperienced, I've seen them cause more harm than good with calling upon just pretty much anything, and that being a negative experience. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So basically, in translation, what you're saying is if you pick out a crystal that is at the bottom of the pendulum, that is something your own personal source is tapping into, whereas a Ouija board, for lack of a better term, is raw. It's just, there's nothing to it. There's no emotion. There's nothing that can ground you to it.
Yes, exactly. And that being said, you're calling upon, things that aren't necessarily connected to you, so they don't want what's best for you. Therefore, they're just going to mess with you,
So what about people who then say, because we have a couple of good friends on this show, Robert Murch and Catherine Dahlman, who are specialists in using a Ouija board. And they've never had anything dangerous happen. They've never had the nightmares that a lot of people say they have. Are we just maybe blowing this out of proportion due to a reputation? Or are we blowing this, or is there actually truth to it? But if you're well trained in using a Ouija, that it can be a great way to produce mediumship.
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly the difference there. It's, you know, if you're familiar with energy, if you're aware of positive and negative, if you're really good at setting intentions, then you're going to have no problem using a Ouija board at all, you know? So I'm not saying, you know, for everyone stay away from it, but I'm saying, you know, for those who are just looking to connect to something, I would say don't use a Ouija board. But for those, you know, energetic masters, absolutely. It's a great form, a great source of connecting. And I bet you anything, those people that you mentioned, they actually teach others how to use it properly. So if you're inexperienced and you want to learn how to use it properly, then learn from a master, right? But if you're inexperienced and you just want to pick this up for a fun game, I would suggest it's probably not the right direction for you.
Do you think, though, let's stick with other topics off of Ouija, but with a pendulum, because they are becoming very popular. I know a lot of people around here who probably shouldn't use them, who are. Do you think they are becoming kind of that new age popularity of trying to connect with spirit on the other side?
I would say yes and no. There's only so much you can get from a pendulum, you know? I mean, yeah, you can go into many questions, but the answers are really yes and no, right? So I would suggest that for anyone using a pendulum to absolutely learn how to use it first as well. And obviously, if you're using any sort of energetic medium or tool to connect to the other side, then you want to set your intentions. That's probably the number one thing when starting up a telepathic conversation or using one of these tools, is that you can't just use a tool and not have an intention behind it. Because say you had a really terrible day at work and there's so much going on in your life, and all of a sudden you pick up this tool and you're putting that energy, that vibration into, you know, maybe the answers, some of the answers that you're getting back. And I don't know about you, Dave. You mentioned that you had a pendulum yourself, and you know, I just find that you know, you can ask the same question a couple of times and get a different response almost every time. And same thing with the tarot cards as well. So at a certain point, you just keep asking questions and you can keep getting more and more confused. And that's where you have to be careful with that as well, is that you can't push too hard for the answers. You just have to let them come. And a lot of people these days are seeking answers. But once again, I think pendulums are a great stepping stone, but I don't think that they are the end of the road for gathering information.
I think with my pendulum, I'm about 80% in accuracy from what I've tried.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've been fortunate, and you know, my personal guides that I deal with are very, very connected to it.
Yeah.
So I haven't had a problem with it, but I guess the way I'm looking at it is a lot of people are just searching for answers. They're not connecting with their higher self. They're not connecting with their own spirit guides. They're not connecting with anything that could be conducive to a positive experience. And to me, that sounds exactly, you know, people are saying that, you know, oh, I'll never play with a planchette on a Ouija board, but here they are dowsing or using something else, you know, and that doesn't make sense to me, because if you don't know how to use one, what makes you think you're going to know how to use the other?
Yep, exactly.
So I find that frustrating. I do. You know? Do you think, though, that a lot of people are trying them out because they are hurting for their own answers?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I mean, now more so than ever before are people thirsty, hungry, you know, looking for the answers. There's so many shifts going on at this time, and I find that within everyone's life, you know, all my clients, friends, family members, you know, everyone else I see around me, it seems like, you know, their foundations are breaking down. Your home and living foundation, your relationship foundations, your job and career foundations. Everyone's foundations are breaking down at this time because those foundations have not been serving that person. And now it's time for that person to kind of face the truth and break those foundations down to actually build up new foundations in their life. Now is the time to do this. And now is the time to really seek out those answers to this information. I mean, when everything else is failing in your life, the only way, the only way to turn is to energy and spirituality and looking for a deeper meaning behind why their foundations are breaking when there is no plausible physical explanation of why.
Got a question from Robin coming in for you. He says, I have done a few ghost hunts and don't use any of those. I meditate and do Tai Chi Chuan. It's easy for me to pick up hot spots. Would you agree that using something that you feel comfortable with is a better way to use something like meditation rather than a tool, say like a pendulum or a board?
Yeah, great point. So, hands down, do what is most comfortable with you, no matter what that is. I mean, if a pendulum is most comfortable, so if a Ouija board is if meditating is most comfortable, absolutely, explore what is best for you. But don't limit yourself, right? Explore other things as well. You want to kind of see what the world has to offer you and then kind of discern from there what works for you, personally. But for me, I mean, I would agree with Robin 100% is that, let go of all of the physical tools. Once again, they are stepping stones, and just go straight to the energy. Just go straight to the meditation. Just go straight to the telepathy, because that is the purest form of communication. Now, it's so funny because just as I said, purest form, I also had my spirit guide step in and say, well, sometimes it's not the purest form of information because our ego gets in the way, right? And that's the problem, is that our own mind, our perception, will get in the way of just the pure answers coming through. But, if you have a form of Tai Chi or a meditation or a Reiki or whatever it is that you can just feel the energy, then that's far better than, say using a pendulum or even dowsing rods. But then again, if you feel like your own mindset stops you in your tracks from feeling that energy, and it does for most of us, then using a tool is going to be a really great stepping stone to give you that confidence to start trusting yourself and start trusting your feelings. And I bet you anything, Dave, that now after a lot of practice with the pendulum, you already know the answer before you receive it from the pendulum, because you feel it, because it's coming from you, right? So if you were to let go of the pendulum and just ask yourself the same question, guaranteed you would receive the same answer whether you had the pendulum or not. And this is just a really great tool for you to start feeling, the energy yourself and getting confident in that feeling.
I've never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right, is that I actually do know the answer that is coming out most of the time. But there are times where I've said, give an example. I used it yesterday. I was out looking for Bigfoot in this spot where I had a dream that I was supposed to go before I moved up here. And my pendulum at the first said, I said, do they know we're here? And I'm like, and it came back, yes. I said, okay, will he be showing up? Yes, not right now, though. Pretty much was the answer. I'm paraphrasing here. Yep. And, later on, we went back to that same spot, and it was like, no, he's not here. He's not ready. So there is a change. But, I mean, it just kind of weirded me out, because a lot of those answers I actually knew before getting the confirmation from the pendulum. But I have had times where I've thought, well, the answer is yes to this, and the answer does come back no, and that happens to be the truthful answer. So I find that strange how it kind of, loops around at times.
Oh, yeah, totally. But, it's interesting, too, because the spirit guides are the same way. In one moment, the answers could be one thing, and then in the next moment, the answers are something completely different. And the reason for that is that it's not spirit guides or the guides that are coming through that are changing the answers. It's actually you and your own free will in that moment changing the very reality that you're existing in, right? Because we are constantly hopping in and out of infinite different parallel universes and parallel realities at all times. So that being said, in one moment we make a decision and we have a certain future based on that decision. And then in the next moment we change that decision and our future is changed because of it, right? And once again, it's not the pendulum that's changing the answers. It's not the spirit guides or the messages that are changing. It's actually us and our own free will that's changing, that therefore changes the outcome of those answers and that energy.
So let's start to make our shift into the different crystals that people can use. Because I find that I have bonded very, very well with sodalite. So, and I didn't know before I bonded with it that it is something that is very healthy for people to wear or be around who suffer from depression and anxiety, or, believe it or not, as weird as it sounds, left-handed people, which I am left-handed. And so I'm just wondering what you feel in regards to, picking out a stone which may work as part of a pendulum or may work for you as a healing tool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I just want to mention to people that crystals are a great tool. If we're talking about tools here, like crystals are where it's at. The reason being is because crystals are a very clear example of a vibrational frequency. So every different crystal has a different vibrational frequency. And as you know, Dave, every crystal helps us with something different. So you just mentioned that sodalite helps with depression. And so there are many different crystals that we can dive into and explore that help with psychic, intuitive, and telepathic abilities. So, one of my favorite crystals would be shungite, actually. So this is a black crystal that really only comes from Russia, which is really interesting. So you have to get it shipped in or maybe go to your favorite crystal shop. And shungite is really good for protection, for grounding, and especially it's good for the EMF rays from technology. And for me in my business, I've got technology everywhere and, my vibration doesn't really vibe with technology these days. So I have shungite all over all of my technology so that, the technology doesn't affect me negatively and I don't affect it so that it cooperates with me. So shungite's one of my favorite, but if we're talking about telepathy, the best crystal would be amethyst. So amethyst is really great for opening the crown chakra, connecting to source energy, and connecting to your interdimensional spirit guides. But, as you know, every person has different crystals that will resonate with them, even though every crystal does something very different for different people. And what I suggest is if you're looking for a crystal that, just kind of open for a crystal, that you want to resonate with, I suggest going into a crystal shop, clearing your mind, and, the best thing would be being able to kind of just close your eyes and run your hands over, a whole selection of crystals and just kind of feel where your hand is gravitating towards. Kind of like picking, for me, how I pick tarot cards from a deck is I spread them all out in front of me, I close my eyes, and then I pick from there. And I would suggest people do the same thing. Close your eyes, skim your hands over all of the different types of crystal, and maybe pick 2, maybe pick 3 that most resonate with you. And then upon reading them up, you'll notice that those are the exact ones that your body, your energy, your emotions need at that time.
I have some questions here coming from our audience, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Shar is asking, how can we be sure we are knowing the thoughts of another? How does that happen? I don't seem to be able to control it.
Okay, that's a really great question. And that can be really difficult. I started really exploring the world of telepathy about 5 years ago, and it was really funny. When you start getting into telepathy, it's hilarious because now you've got all of these mixed messages and these thoughts that are coming in, and it's very, very difficult to discern between what is your own thought and what is someone else's thought. Now, once again, I spent a long time figuring this out, and it's really difficult. I mean, the number one thing I can mention is quiet your mind. The more your mind is quiet, the more you will notice a thought that is not your own, right? But the more your mind is active, the more you will go without notice of what is your own thought and what is someone else's thought. But this is like, out of all of my research, out of all of my channeling, out of, however long I've spent on this, telepathy, this is the number one surefire way of determining what is your own thought versus what is a thought that is channeled or spontaneous or not your own or coming from somewhere or someone else. Now, let's just give an easy example of ice cream, okay? So if it is your own thought, there will be a progression of thoughts. So, for example, it's a really hot summer day. You're like, I'm outside, it's so hot and sunny outside, and, I could really use something cold, something cool to cool me down. Oh yeah, ice cream. Ice cream would be perfect right now. And that, right there, is your own thought. That is how ice cream came about in your own mind. Now, if it's someone else's thought, say, for example, you are outside, you're just walking, you're listening to music, you've got nothing else on your mind other than that song that is playing in your head. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the thought comes in, ice cream. That thought didn't actually come from anywhere. There was no progression, there was no lead up, there was no, strain of thought that led up to ice cream. It just popped into your head. This is the surefire way of knowing that that thought was not necessarily your own. And you might have very easily walked by someone who either had an ice cream cone or someone who was thinking about ice cream themselves, and all of a sudden that thought comes into your own mind. Now, of course, you have to be very aware of your thoughts in order to determine and decipher which thoughts are coming from somewhere, so a progression of thoughts, and which thoughts are spontaneous. But out of all of my, channeling and, awareness of my own thoughts, this is how I could tell what thoughts were my own. Oh yeah, okay, well, I was thinking about that person because I was thinking about this prior. Or this person just came into my head, I texted them, and they told me right away that they were just thinking about me because I was picking up on their thoughts about me. They popped into my head. It didn't come from anywhere, therefore it wasn't my own thought. Hopefully that kind of makes it a little bit easier for you to discern. Does that kind of make sense, Dave?
Sure it does.
Okay, good.
Sure,
good.
It absolutely does. Let's get to another question here, because we only got about 5 minutes before we got to go to break. Trip is asking, how do we stop others from reading our minds or teleporting to us?
Okay, so a couple of things. So first of all, it's difficult to stop others from teleporting to us. The only way to really stop that, because we don't really have control over our surrounding environment, right? So really difficult, but biggest way to do that is actually putting an invisibility cloak around yourself. I do this all the time. If you could imagine, my vibration is so high that there have been many entities that have tried to kind of take me down over the years. So I just put an invisibility cloak around myself, which means that I am invisible to any lower vibrational life forms, straight up. Now, how to not allow other people to read our thoughts? Something very similar. It's kind of like this energetic protection veil that you put around your head. Now, I will just mention on the topic of telepathy, and we can get into more of this after the break, is the fact that some people are natural senders of telepathy and some people are natural receivers of telepathy. So if you are a natural sender, which means that your thoughts are really loud, right? I'm a natural receiver. I am a channeler. I receive for a living. So if you are a natural sender, I will naturally pick up on your thoughts whether I want to or not, because your thoughts are just so loud. So if you're a natural sender, it can be more difficult to close down your own thoughts. Now, you don't have to put, a tinfoil hat on your head to protect your own thoughts. It's really just energy. It's really just kind of, instead of being very out of your body and very almost spacey, that's when your thoughts are really open to the rest of the world. You're like, la-di-da, I'm just kind of everywhere, which is fine. A lot of people are, and there's really no need to protect your thoughts most of the time. And there's actually not a lot of entities or energies or things that are trying to read our thoughts most of the time. So it's not really a necessity to shut down your own thoughts unless you feel like you are being watched or you are being read or, you don't want someone to read your mind. It's usually a more rare situation that someone would, unless you are, some sort of secret agent and you've got some top secret information that you want to keep on lockdown. That's when you just kind of put that, like for me, it looks like a vault that goes around my head, almost like a cap that I put on my head. And once that's on there, it's pretty much impenetrable. And I've even had other psychics and channelers not be able to read me because my psychic protection is so high. So once again, the protection is all energy. But for most people, it's not really necessary. There's no one really trying to read your thoughts.
We have literally about 1 minute until we got to go to break. 1 minute and counting. Or if we use a hockey term, final minute of play in the first period. But, us being Canadian, we can't really be doing that tonight because it is the 4th of July down in the United States. For 2 hours more on the West Coast here, 3 hours if you're in Alaska, 4 hours if you're in Hawaii or beyond. Elizabeth April comes on Spaced Out Radio the first Tuesday of every month with a show topic that we like to call the spiritual you. She breaks everything down for the first 2 hours of the show. Everett Thiemer will be with me for hour number 3 from the Encounter Online. It's going to be a long, fun night indeed. And in hour number 2, we're going to get into telepathy, because telepathy is something that totally intrigues me, and it's something I'm working on right now. Whose mind am I working on? Could it be yours? Yours? We'll see right after this break. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back. Coming September 29th to October 1st, the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon. Hi, this is Dave Scott. The event will be held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Come join us for an amazing weekend of speakers talking all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Sasquatch, intuitiveness. Listen to great speakers like Miriam Delicato, Samantha Mowat, and the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy. Get your VIP passes by going to spacedoutradio.com and clicking on the Paracon banner. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter Online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us, so sit down, relax, put your feet up, enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio Live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back for hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us on a nightly basis. Happy 4th of July. If you were in the United States, I hope you had a safe holiday filled with family, friends, and fireworks. And I hope your party is continuing while you listen to us. Tomorrow night on the program, Nick Redfern is going to join us. We're efforting Nick Redfern, as we're going to get into everything from black-eyed kids to UFO conspiracies and everything strange in between. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at the new look, spacedoutradio.com. And we want to thank Tim from UFOseekers.com for helping us rebuild our website that launched today. Tim, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for putting us on the map. Love working with UFOseekers.com as we are affiliated as one. It's always a good time, man. Always a good time. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com tomorrow night. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ignovamus. Ignovamus is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers. I don't know what the hell it means, but it's in the dictionary, so that is your password for tonight. Thank you, Bill. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you could be like Skeptic, Andrew, and so many more. By going to hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can give us a follow at Spaced Out Radio as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. Our website, once again, is spacedoutradio.com with a brand new look, but we still have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can check out our store. We're going to have a plethora of new items there for you in the alien head logo. I know Canadian Joe will like that. And you can also buy tickets to the first annual Caribou Paracon in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia, September 29th to October 1st. Read up on the encounter online. Fill out an SOR Sightlines report if you've had something weird, and so much more. Now, tonight, for the final hour, for her, Elizabeth April is back. ElizabethApril.com is her website. She comes on the first Tuesday of every month for a little segment we like to call around these parts, The Spiritual You. And we're going to get to more of your questions, but we're also going to get into telepathy this hour as well. Elizabeth, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, young lady. I'm still upset that I graduated high school a year before you were born. That still trips me out a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Let's get to some audience questions here first before we get into telepathy for the rest of the hour. And this one comes from Catherine. She says, I love amethyst. Does that count as a gem? How can someone tell if something lines up with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So amethyst is fantastic. It's, I think I mentioned it before as being a really great crown chakra opener, really great for lucid dreaming, remembering your dreams, and of course, connecting to source energy. So if you are out there and you're like, which one should I use to connect? It would be amethyst. So that's really great. And, if you love it and you're just naturally drawn and attracted to it, then that is something that you're resonating with. So that's something that you're absolutely vibrating with. There are some crystals that I've never had because I just don't have a pull to them. And there's other crystals that I'm so attracted to. I've got them in every form. So that's kind of how you can really tell if something's vibing with you and if something's right for you is if you're attracted to it and if you naturally have it in your life. Or I also find that when someone gives you a crystal, that's usually the one or something that you need in your life at that time. So also be aware of crystal gifts, because even if you don't like that crystal necessarily, but it's given to you, it's pretty much just the universe and your spirit guide's way of telling you, hey, this one is for you.
Let's get to another question. This one from BTO. Elizabeth, what are your feelings regarding the chakra system, which, just like the pineal gland, are biological implants? So do you believe that, or do you rely on your chakra and pineal gland?
Okay, very cool. So yes, of course, I rely on my pineal gland. it releases a chemical called DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, which allows me to astral travel and have the insights and abilities that I have. So 110%, I am stimulating and using my pineal gland all the time, pretty much for my day job. Now, the chakra system, I use that as well. And I believe in it because I see it. So I haven't really studied anything on the chakra system, but I can see everyone's chakras very clearly. So I know when something has a block or when something's imbalanced because I can visually see that. But I also want to let everyone know, if you're not already aware of it, that our chakra system is actually changing. It's transitioning. It's opening up. We're going from a 7 chakra system, which is the traditional chakra system, into a 13 chakra system. And then for very few of us on this planet, but increasing numbers as more starseeds are being born here, we're actually going from the 13 chakra system to a crystalline energy grid. So some of us actually have crystalline energy, which means that we don't have to use the chakra system at all. But of course, we can dive into that concept in another show. So so just kind of briefly overviewing it, the 7 chakra system is actually something very traditional, but it's also something of the past. We're moving beyond that now, which is very exciting.
I don't even know 2 chakras, man. And now you're throwing another 6 at me. That's not even fair. Not even fair. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Shar has a question. Recently, out of nowhere, I knew what someone said about me to the person I was with. What do you call that?
Oh, absolutely. That would be a mix of telepathy and intuition. Just kind of like, and that actually brings up a really good point. A lot of what telepathy is. Now, I just want to let everyone know that whether you are actually hearing words or conversations in your mind or not, you are telepathic and you are having telepathic conversations all the time. So energy is just the form of telepathy. Just because we're not translating that energy into language doesn't necessarily mean that we're not having these telepathic conversations. So I would actually refer to telepathy as reading in between the lines, right? So we don't have to receive full-on words or full conversations to just know things. And that's really what, the energetic ability of all-knowing and clairsentience really comes down to, is just having the ability to be intuitive and pick up on these things that aren't necessarily said. I would consider all of that to be telepathy and intuition kind of combined all in the same ball.
Let's get to Ron's question. When I use and hold a spirit box, I feel an energy go through me as I connect to spirit. Am I channeling?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, now the word channeling can come in many, many different forms. You can sing and channel, play music and channel, paint art and channel. You can just talk and channel. You can touch crystals and channel their vibrational frequency. Channel just means that you are a conduit to energy, no matter how that energy comes out of you, and it comes out in different ways. So I would say absolutely when you, touch that crystal, you are absolutely channeling that energy.
Let's get to another question. This one from Robin. I use oracle cards. I would like to know the difference between oracle cards and tarot cards.
Okay, interesting. Now, from my own perspective, I've never, I have a deck just kind of for fun, but I don't really use them and I haven't really studied them. So I don't actually know the specific difference between oracle and tarot. In my eyes, they're all just tarot cards. I just kind of lump sum all of them, and I call them all just tarot cards. That's kind of what I consider them, but I know that there's a very clear difference between oracle and tarot, but I could not tell you the difference.
Me either.
Yeah.
Me either. A lot of people who use the cards, they read the message on the card, and then they look in the book, because every tarot card deck or oracle card deck comes with a book, and they got to find out the meaning of that card. To me, that seems so unnatural to what the message is. Do you find that as well? Because I have a couple of decks that I use, okay, that I find I look into the image to get what comes into my mind. Now, that's just the way I do it. Do you find that the messages that are printed on those cards are basic, or should people be looking more into the picture to find the message that comes with that card?
Really difficult to say, to be honest, because some of the cards have very simple images. So it's difficult to just kind of look into the image. I mean, you just have to look at the whole picture, right? So look at the entire card. Usually there's a very short and sweet message on the card, and then just sit with it. This is what I usually tell everyone, is just choose a card and sit with it and ask yourself what that means. Now, I've had experiences with some decks that, I go into the book and I'll find the answer right away from what's written in the book. And I'm like, wow, that was pretty bang on. And I'll have that for almost every card in that deck. But there are other decks where I go into the book and I don't even bother reading anything from the book anymore, because it's more so my own intuition that can receive the answers or the messages, or, I just kind of feel it out from what I see from the card rather than reading it. And I think that this is different for everyone. So I can't just say that this is a really good tarot card deck or this is a really bad one. It really depends on your own vibrational frequency. It's kind of like crystals, actually. It's like you choose the deck that most resonates with you and your energy. And for everyone, there's going to be a different deck. So I would say feel it out. But if you are consistently getting disappointed by what's written in the book, then stop reading the book and just feel it out and ask yourself what this card means to you and why you pulled it at this time.
I also believe that if you're choosing a tarot deck, you don't choose it, it chooses you.
Absolutely.
Because there are a lot of times where I've been in metaphysical stores or bookstores that sell decks, and I will look for a deck and nothing jumps out at me. Then I can walk by another store and see a deck, and all of a sudden it's like, I have to have that. But when I was in Provincetown, Massachusetts, I had something interesting happen, and I'm curious your opinion on this. There was an extraterrestrial tarot card deck in this psychic metaphysical store. I picked it up off the shelf because, you know me and aliens, I like my Carl, and and everything along those lines. And immediately my hand started getting almost like electric jolts in it. So I knew that it didn't want me to have that. But my mind is like, I want that deck. I gotta have that deck. And every time I went to grab it, from then on, because I wanted to buy it, I couldn't get it off the shelf. I was told, don't do that. Do not touch that deck. What would you call that situation? And have you ever had that happen to you?
Oh, absolutely. So once again, I would call that a combination of channeling, telepathy, intuition, divine guided messages from your spirit guides. I mean, it's kind of all lumped into the same thing. Whenever we receive messages energetically, physically, verbally, they're all telepathic messages. That's kind of what I consider telepathy, is just any sort of messages coming to you. And so I would absolutely consider that telepathic. And I would say that that would be your spirit guides coming through to give you the message that that's not okay. And I've had many experiences of something very similar of, this is really good for you, you should have this, or this is not so good for you, don't even, touch that. It's just really your guides coming through and making it very clear what's good for you and what's not good for you. But of course, for people who are more open, more lucid, more fluid, it's easier for us to receive those messages. For many other people who aren't as aware of those messages, they would have picked up that deck and went home with it anyway, right? And maybe they would receive negative messages or something that's not for them because they weren't totally listening to the guided message in that moment, right? So, so absolutely. I mean, I have a funny telepathy story, actually. Now, this was, probably like the first year I ever even opened my mind to telepathy. And this is when I really started channeling, just because I was opening up to this concept. And so I was really opening my mind. Everywhere I went, I was like, let's hear someone else's thoughts. Now, Nowadays, I don't do that because if I were to open, it would be way too much energy for me. So I just kind of keep myself closed in public places. But so I went on a bus and I was going from, my university town to my hometown. It was just an hour trip. And so I sit behind the bus driver. It's the only seat left on the bus. And, I'm trying to like chill out, before I get home, and I've got, headphones on and I'm listening to music. And the bus driver, and as I was saying before the break, there are natural senders and there are natural receivers of telepathy. And so this bus driver was very much so a natural sender, and I'm a natural receiver. So his thoughts were very loud. And the whole time, the hour-long bus ride, it was like he was making his job a game. So it was like he was in a racing game, and every time he would like turn a corner, it would be like and like he would like have all these sounds in his head, and like he would like get different points for different things, and it was too much. I was like, can you just quiet your mind? I'm trying to relax over here. And his thoughts were way too loud. And then eventually, his thoughts ended up drifting off into his relationship and his ex and, his mother and what was going on with her. And, by the end of it, I just wanted to pull him aside and tell him, like, dude, you need to let go of some of this past stuff. Like, it's haunting you, but I didn't. It wasn't my place. I shouldn't have received those thoughts at all. But that was kind of, one of the first really major experiences that I had with opening my mind to telepathy, and then all of a sudden getting messages when I didn't necessarily want to, just because, this guy was a natural sender. So kind of a funny story there.
Okay, Robert's question is, I cut and polish gemstones. For some stones, I swear some of the crystals sing while I am cleaning and shaping them. Are those particular stones the type I should hang on to?
Okay, yes, absolutely. So I would recommend hanging on to those. I mean, there's obviously a clear connection there, which is awesome. And then the other thing too is, just with crystals in general, don't expect to hang on to any crystal. So like, you can possess a crystal for a certain period of time, but eventually that crystal is going to disappear on you or get lost, or you're going to give it to someone. And this is just a natural progression of crystals. It's actually very unnatural for a crystal to be in your possession for your entire life. Crystals like movement of energy. Crystals are here to help many people, not just one person. So just kind of being aware that if you feel like someone needs something, especially a crystal, give it to them. Don't even second guess it, because most likely they need that now in their life more than you do.
Dennis has an incredible question. Dennis, I got to say, I'll say publicly, Dennis is a good friend of this show's. He actually is very active in sharing our show on social media all over the place. Never asked him to do it. He just does it out of the goodness of his heart. So I love being able to answer Dennis, or ask Dennis's questions. And he's saying, for those of us who listen to a lot of internet radio, we all have those moments when no matter how good a guest is for those shows, that person just does not ring true or honest. Can we feel a person's true nature coming through media?
Okay. I would say absolutely you can. Especially something like talk radio is fantastic for really feeling out a person's vibrational frequency. So are like videos are really good at like kind of feeling that out. I find now, once again, everyone's different at how they feel out someone's energy. I find that like written word can be very easily projected, and so can pictures, very easily projected. But when you've got someone live and it's totally unedited and, they're being put on the spot, that's when you can really find someone's true and authentic self. And to be honest, don't second guess it. If someone doesn't resonate with you, that's not the person who's meant to be giving you that information. And don't say, oh, well, maybe next time they'll resonate with me. Most likely they're not going to resonate with you next time. So really stay true to yourself and your own feeling. Once again, it doesn't necessarily mean that that person just is wrong in general. It just means that that person is wrong for you in that moment. So just kind of being aware of that, but absolutely we can feel out other people's vibrations through media, and instantly you should be able to tell if that person is or isn't for you. However, once again, through written word, like say social media posts and through pictures, it's definitely a lot more difficult to tell someone's authenticity, just because it's easier to project that way.
Let's get to BTO's question, who is asking, what are your views on telepathy and telepathy? Do you rely on internal or external guidance, and who are your guides?
Okay, very cool. A lot of really cool things going on there. So, okay, so telepathy and telepathy. So I've actually never ever heard the term telepathy, but I totally know what you mean, which is like empathic messages. Totally get that. And the difference there, I would say there isn't much, if at all, to be honest. I don't really know what the definition of telepathy is, but just kind of going by what I'm feeling from it, there wouldn't be much of a difference between telepathy and empathic messages. Once again, kind of all in the same realm of energy exchanges. Now, for me, it's really 50-50, like the internal versus the external guidance. Now, when I need information for someone else, absolutely that is external guidance. That is from their spirit guides. When I need information for the whole of humanity, absolutely that is external guidance. I'm receiving that from the Galactic Federation of Light, the Palladian Security Council, you name it, I receive it from them. Now, when it comes down to my own life, that's when I've been working a lot harder at receiving the internal messages. Where do I need to be right now? I don't know. Well, what is my intuition telling me? What is my higher self telling me? And then, of course, I receive those messages about the future and, my career and things like that from my spirit guides, who are more objective. So it's sometimes easier to receive messages from them. And for me, a lot of my spirit guides are interdimensional, just because I am quite cosmic. So I've got a lot of those connections. I've got more interdimensional connections than I do human. And for the majority of them, I've got a lot of Palladians around me. I've got a lot of tall gray Zetas, so kind of tall gray beings. And who else do I have around me? Oh, yes. I also have Khan, who is a tall mantis being. And he's kind of like this prey mantis, kind of 12th dimensional, crazy intellectual and funny being who helps me out as well. So I've got this kind of whole slew, almost like a crew of spirit guides who are here to help me and essentially help me help the world. And that's my purpose here. So that's kind of, who's around me and how I gain access to some of that information.
Joe has a question, and this will be the final one before we get into telepathy. He says, "Hi, April. With all the gunfire and fireworks in the mountains tonight for the 4th of July, does that bother Bigfoot in my area?"
Okay. Okay, great. And then let's just take a look. 1 second. Okay. Yes, absolutely. I would say yes. Definitely something that, Bigfoot isn't fully aware of, is like where that's coming from. I kind of got the feeling when tapping into his energy of, almost like I don't want to like undermine him, but like almost like a dog's energy when like there's like loud noises or like thunder or lightning, like obviously not thunder and lightning, but like not really knowing where that's coming from. Yeah, definitely freaks him out a little bit. Not totally sure where that's coming from. And I think it's like that survivalistic instinct that would kind of put him into almost like a fearful mentality on a night like tonight.
In other words, keep your guns down, Joe, if you want the Bigfoot experience. Keep the guns down. And keep the pointy sticks down, too, my friend. You don't want to stab them. They don't like that. They may get angry. I want to get more into telepathy now, okay? Because For some reason, over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, I cannot get it out of my head. I think there is something to that. And I've been practicing on people and friends, trying to figure out what the hell they're saying. I'm not even close to getting any answers right whatsoever, But, it's one of those topics of discussion that people have been studying for centuries, trying to read minds, trying to figure out what other people are saying. Some people have had success. Others don't believe that it is truly possible. Where do you stand on telepathy?
I mean, 100%, it's possible. I've experienced it many times in my life. So that's kind of where I stand. And once again, just kind of as I was mentioning at the beginning, is that I believe that everyone has psychic and spiritual abilities. And the number one ability that I know for a fact that every single human has on this planet is telepathy. And actually my belief, and it doesn't have to be everyone's belief, but what I've channeled and what I've seen throughout human history is the fact that all of humanity used to be telepathic before we actually conceived language altogether. And there are many, many species out there that don't have any language, that are purely telepathic. So I believe that telepathy is our natural state of being. And I believe that language actually limits the telepathic messages that we're sharing between each other all the time.
So when you are practicing telepathy on, let's say, a friend or whoever you are sitting near, what are you trying to find? What are you going through?
Okay, well, I do, I hold workshops in Toronto, and so I bring a bunch of like-minded people together, and every week there's a different subject. Very similar to my videos, very similar to these radio shows. And one of the subjects is telepathy. So I brought about 35 people together, and I paired them off intuitively, and I had them sitting in front of each other. And I went through the method of telepathy, which is step number 1 to telepathy, once again, is quieting your mind. And then step number 2 is asking questions. So what do you want to receive? Now, kind of like I put people through this game, I like to call it. And it's the game of sending and receiving messages. So I actually have people either send a color, a number, or a shape. Right? So, I mean, the shapes are the trickiest ones I find. And it depends if you're a logical person, it's easier for you to send and receive numbers. And if you're an empathic person, if you're a very kind of flowy person, then it's easier for you to send and receive colors. So really what I do is I have, you pair off. One person is the sender, sending the message, and one person is the receiver. So it's important to know your roles before you start doing telepathy. If anyone is just trying to tap into someone's thought process, it is literally like tapping into, what could I relate it to? Like Google that is like constantly downloading information. Like our minds are so all over the place. And if that person is not a natural sender, it's going to be next to impossible for you to pick up on any sort of messages or anything that they're trying to just say in their own minds. So it's really great to be in a structured environment where telepathy is the number one goal of that, hour or that evening or that get together. So get together with a like-minded individual, a friend, a family member, a partner, and start sending and receiving colors, numbers, or shapes. And then having that intention and someone being the designated sender and someone being the designated receiver and then switching those roles is when you're actually going to see those results. Now, the number one thing that I have to mention to everyone about telepathy is not to get discouraged. This is the number one thing. So many people are like, oh, I didn't get the color. That's okay. Don't get discouraged. The other thing too is that, it's so important to be objective while receiving messages. So say you are the receiver, and this is actually, it comes down to channeling as well. In order to channel information purely from the source, in order to receive telepathic messages, we must quiet our own mind and be completely objective about what we're about to receive. So say, for example, we're doing a number, telepathic messages about a number. So you're doing number 1 to 10. Now, if your favorite number is 3, and you can't let go of the fact that that's your favorite number, then you're never going to receive the number 7 if that's what the person is giving you. Because your subjective opinion is that it's going to be 3 because 3 is your favorite number. You have to let go of your opinion, you have to let go of your ego, you have to quiet your mind, and you have to go through every single number objectively until 1 or 2 or maybe 3 pop out at you. And those are the ones that are the ones that person is sending you. Once again, you're going to have, the differences between people and the strength of their abilities as well. Now, if you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know anyone who would ever want to do something like that with me, that's okay too. You can actually practice telepathy on your own. And one of the best methods of telepathy that, I've kind of learned on my own, and this is just a method to help you strengthen your telepathic reach. Now, for those of you who don't know, telepathy is stimulated by the pineal gland, which is essentially connected to your third eye chakra. So in order to stimulate this, to be open to telepathy, take a deck of cards, shuffle those cards, and then having them face down in front of you, lifting up the card so that the back of the card is facing you. So really lift up the card, feel it out, close your eyes. You can't see what that card is. And ask yourself if that card is red or black. You have a 50-50 shot at what it is, and don't try and guess. Try and really feel it out. Ask yourself what that card is and feel it out. And that's actually going to really help you open up to telepathic abilities. And you can do this on your own. Deck of cards in front of you, asking yourself red or black, 50-50 shot every single time. Once again, don't get discouraged if you have 10 of them in a row that you didn't get. Just once again, center yourself, quiet your mind, feel it out, and the answers will naturally come.
I want to tell you a story that happened to me just a couple of weeks ago. I have always had a spirit animal as a cougar, or mountain lion, whatever you want to call them. Doesn't really matter. So a couple weeks ago, I have a conservation officer show up in my driveway. And he says, "Hi, sir, how you doing today?" I said, "Good." He goes, "Do you have any small kids or dogs?" I said, "Yes, I have both." And he goes, "Well, just so you know, in the green belt behind your backyard, there was a cougar spotted this morning walking towards the elementary school." So I said, "Okay, that's kind of cool. Did you find him yet?" "Nope, can't find him." So we just continued the small talk, and he said, "Thanks so much." I waved him off, and off he went to go find this cougar. Now, having a cougar as a totem animal or spirit animal, immediately, the way I am, I start trying to telepathically communicate with this animal, saying, "Get the hell out of Dodge, man, otherwise you're a dead cat. Yeah. And I don't really want you to die. I kind of like you, but you're in a bad area. Cats versus school, not a good idea. You're going to lose every time." So I kept trying to send that message out to wherever I felt he was to get the heck out of here. Just go away. A couple hours later, they sent a search dog up that specializes in tracking cougars, and he couldn't find him. He lost the track, and the cougar was gone. So, as coincidental as that is, and I'm not naive enough to say, "Oh, it was me, I did it, I got this job done, I got that cougar out of here." I'm not naive enough to say that, okay? But it did make me think, Elizabeth, that what if it actually worked?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say about hearing a story like that? I'm curious your opinion.
Absolutely. Right away, some people say that I'm too positive or too trusting, but right away, you made a difference right away, instant validation. I felt it, I got those, the chills, right? And I felt that validation that you really helped that cougar get out, especially animals. The best thing is that, if you do have an animal at home, try telepathy on your animal. Guaranteed. And actually, I find that cats versus dogs, cats will pick up on those messages every time. Do they want to respond or even listen to those messages? No, probably not. But dogs seem to be very distracted. Humans seem to be very distracted. Cats are quite leisurely. So they're really open to those messages. So I find that, if you do have animals, try connecting to your animals. Try, connecting telepathically. You'll be surprised at the results. And, guaranteed, instantaneously, I knew that you helped that cougar get out with your telepathic message. And I would also consider the fact that you even felt the need to connect to that cougar in that way was very intuitive. It was almost like you were receiving a message from maybe that cougar's spirit guides, maybe your own spirit guides. Maybe that cougar was a representation of you at that time, and you could connect to it. But it was your intuition that led you to pretty much tell that cougar to back off. So yeah, absolutely, I would validate that experience and say, don't question something like that. I mean, it's so clear that it came through to you. It was meant to be.
I know, but there is this skeptic inside of me that says purely coincidence that they couldn't find the cougar, but, the spiritual side of me says victory is mine, man. Victory is mine.
Yeah.
But it does show that the power of perception or the power of throwing a thought out there can change the path of what was supposed to happen, because there was literally conservation officers all over my area looking for this cat. All over. And the one thing about my area, because we're way out here in the wilderness, when there is a cat around a school, a big cat, a cat that is looking potentially for a meal, okay, and could chow down on a child, as sad as that may sound, but it has happened here, that cat was in danger.
Yep.
So it does make me think, with the amount of conservation officers that were around and loaded for arms to try and get this cat out of there, whether they tranquilize it or unfortunately have to kill it, it was one of those situations where I almost felt anxiety over it, Elizabeth. I felt an anxiety for about half an hour, 45 minutes. I delayed my work that I was going to be doing on the show to try and get this message through. And I'm yelling at the cat in my head, are you hearing me? Damn it, man, are you hearing me? Are you like Carl? Carl just not paying attention? Right?
Yep.
So I wasn't too sure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that cat, picked up on those messages, and you're like, well, the skeptic side of me, thinks that it was just a coincidence. And to be honest, I don't believe in coincidences at all. All I believe in is synchronicities, right? I believe that everything happens for a reason. So the second that you even mention the word coincidence, I translate that to synchronicity. It was just a synchronicity. I mean, it was meant to happen. You were meant to pull out that message, and that cat was meant to hear it and get out, So that's beautiful.
I have a question from Soul. And Soul is asking you, can we distinguish synthetic telepathy at all from telepathy from our spirit guides?
Oh, that's a great question, Soul. Wow, okay. Okay, let me just think about this for a second. Okay, yes, we can, but it's really difficult. Now, for those of you who have no idea what synthetic telepathy is, it's pretty much a projected telepathy, which means that it's difficult because it's not even like it's fake. It's just the fact that it's not coming from the best of intentions. It's not coming from the right, direction. And sometimes, you'll have, and I've experienced this where, other entities will come through and pretend to be spirit guides and give me messages, and that I would consider to be synthetic telepathy. And how do you discern between synthetic telepathy, so it's fake projected telepathy, and real telepathy? Now, all of it is telepathy at the end of the day, right? Synthetic telepathy is just more of a projection. And what it really comes down to, and hopefully that's kind of your definition of it, so I'm not sure because everyone's got their own spiritual definitions. But really what it comes down to is your own feeling. Once again, like, it all comes down to your own intuition. There is no textbook that will tell you, yes, this is telepathy, no, this is not telepathy, or yes, this is authentic, and no, this is not authentic. It really comes down to how you feel about that message. I've received positive messages before, but I haven't resonated with them, so they've been positive, and it's like, oh yeah, I could believe that, but it doesn't feel right. And the more that I question that message, the more the truth comes out, and the less and less that lie can be held in that place. And the more I'm able to discern between what is the truth and what is not the truth. So this is just going to be kind of like a game that you're going to have to play with yourself and your spirit guides in order to kind of discern between what is authentic and what is not.
Do you think we are any closer as people start to get more spiritually enlightened, where telepathy is going to, say in the next 25 to 50 years, become an actual way of communication?
Absolutely, actually. A channeler brought it up to me that, and I never thought about this before, but the new generation, the millennial generation, all they do is text, right? There's really no form of like a one-on-one communication anymore. And this channeler brought it up, the fact that she believed that text messages were the introductory step to telepathic communication. And this really baffled me and blew my mind. But then she went on to explain that, there's really not a lot that's said in text messages, especially with short forms and abbreviations and terrible grammar and things like that. You really do have to read between the lines to get a feel for the person's intention behind the text. The words only say so much. So in her explaining this to me, it totally came together in saying, wow, this is really the first step to getting back into telepathy as a main form of communication. It's like we could say one or two words to our friends and family, and they'll know exactly where we're coming from, exactly how we're feeling. As long as they're open, as long as they're intuitive, as long as they're listening, they're going to receive all of that information. It's almost like a picture says 1,000 words. And now it's a text message of 4 words says 1,000 words, because we're actually receiving, the messages in between those words through that text message, which is a really cool way of kind of thinking about it.
If you are teaching someone to try to telepathically communicate with an animal or another person, do they need to be grounded before they do that? Do they need to be spiritually clean before they try and take that step?
Yes, absolutely. I would say you should be clear all the time anyway. And grounded, yes, but you also need a certain sense of ungrounding in order to, you need to be ungrounded to receive the message, and then you need to be grounded in order to translate the message, if that makes sense. So we're receiving messages all the time, and then we actually need to ground ourselves in order to translate the message. And then, to really just clear and quiet your mind is the main thing that I could recommend to anyone in telepathy, is just clear your mind, quiet your mind, and that's when the real messages will come through. But if your mind is chaotic and it's all over the place and you've got so many things going on, then there's no way you're going to be able to hear anyone else's telepathic messages, let alone your own.
What should people listen for?
Well, that's the thing. If you don't have a direction or an intention, then you're listening to absolutely nothing. You're listening to crickets, right? So think about, by you quieting your mind, you're opening yourself up to what I like to call the universal Google, which means now that your mind is quiet, you can take your mind in any direction you want. You are the creator of your own reality. Your own reality is your own universe, right? So when we quiet our minds, it's like, okay, great. Now we're free and clear to be telepathic, but what do you want to receive? Do you want to receive it from someone? Then that's what you're looking for. Do you want to receive a message from your spirit guides related to a job, a relationship, a decision that you have to make? Then that's what your intention has to be. But if you're just quieting your mind to just receive anything, then don't expect anything at all. Because, you know, if you just open up a page to Google and you're like, well, just give me anything, Google's going to give you nothing. And that's really the way that the universe works. You have to set your intention. You have to have a direction in order to really receive anything tangible. So quiet your mind first step, quiet your mind. Second step, ask for a question or ask for something. Set your intention, set your direction. And then the third step is translate it, right? And that's like, okay, well, how are you feeling about that? Do you get a jolt in your stomach? Do you get a pain in your shoulder? Now, what does that mean? Are you receiving an image? What does that mean? Are you receiving a word? What does that mean? Right? So it's great to receive these things, but then you have to translate them and really decipher for yourself what that means to you.
So when you're trying to, let's say, connect with me at this point, even though it's late at night, even though that you're 3,200 miles away from me, even though that, we've been having a conversation regarding a lot of different topics tonight, could you tune in to try and send me or say one of our listeners a message? Like,
yeah,
would that work, or is it something that has to be prepped for?
No, there's definitely no preparation needed, but once again, some people can have not very closed off minds, but sometimes, if you're trying to send, say, an animal, you're like, oh, this is the animal. But you're like, oh, I really have to go grocery shopping. It can be very difficult for someone like me to receive the message that you want me to receive if you've got other dominant thoughts, right? So the best kind of place to do telepathy is in a very quiet, very relaxed setting. But you know what? Just like you said it, time and space doesn't exist within the realm of telepathy. You can be halfway around the world and telepathy still rings true no matter where you are.
Let's get to a question from Milo. And Milo is asking, by the way, Milo, where have you been hiding? You haven't been around in like a week or so. That's unacceptable, man. Unacceptable in the chat room. Milo is asking, can I message someone else's spirit guides?
Can you message someone else's spirit guides? Like send a message? Do you think that's what he means?
Sure.
Yeah. You can absolutely send a message to someone else's spirit guides. You might not always get an answer from someone else's spirit guides. I've actually had a couple of spirit guides, in my day tell me no, they're not going to give me information for someone. And then I tell the spirit guide, I'm like, well, the only reason why I'm asking you for their information is for them. It's not like I'm using it for my own gains. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess so. So yeah, absolutely. By all means, send a message to someone else's spirit guides for that person. And hopefully that person will receive that message from their spirit guides. But I would say, don't even do that method and just go straight to the person. If you want to connect to your friend Rob, across the street, then send him the message. Don't try and contact his spirit guides. But if you want to send someone healing, then you want to contact their spirit guides so that their spirit guides can send them healing. So that makes kind of more sense.
We got about 3.5 minutes before we have to go off to break here. And I love this question from Michael in the SOR Space Travelers Club. He is asking, if someone says what you were just thinking, how do you know if you were the receiver or the transmitter of that message?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question, actually. This happens all the time. It's extremely difficult to understand if you are the sender or receiver of said message. Because it's difficult to know if that person had the thought first or if you had the thought first. So most likely what I tend to find is that if it's like you and your friend and always they're always saying what's on your mind. They're always saying what you're thinking. It's most likely they're picking up on your thought and then they're saying it. Right? And a lot of people have like a lack of communication, but their minds are very active. So once again, if you have a relationship and one person's the natural sender and one person's the natural receiver, most likely that person is being received some sort of message and then they're just saying that message. But as far as like, what came first, the chicken or the egg, you just never know, right? You just never know if it was really the person who said that thing and you just picked up on it before they said it, or if it was actually them picking up on your thought. It's really difficult unless you can actually, you're fully aware of reading thoughts. It can be very difficult to discern.
So when it comes to your own spirit guides, when they chat with you, is that considered telepathy?
Absolutely. 100% that's telepathy.
A lot of people cannot hear that message, though.
Yes, exactly. Because the only reason why people can't hear their own messages is because their ego thoughts are too loud. Now, granted, and I will just kind of mention this, and I'm glad that I am, it's because it's actually so much easier for us to receive other people's information and messages and telepathic thoughts than it is for ourselves to receive our own telepathic messages from our spirit guides. And the reason being is because we have our attachments and expectations to our own messages, whereas when we're receiving something from someone else, we don't necessarily have those same attachments and expectations, so it's more objective. Therefore, our ego thought is a lot quieter than, say, us getting our own messages, if that makes sense.
We only have about a minute and a half left with you tonight. It always goes by so fast when you're on.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's up in your plans in the near future here, and how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so near future, I am moving. So I'm just kind of in the middle of moving right now. But yeah, so I've got my live video every Monday at 5:55 Eastern Standard Time. And that's a really great way to once again ask me direct questions that I can channel live on the air. And that would be right off of Facebook, my public page. And then if you really do resonate with me and this information, check out my YouTube channel, Just Elizabeth April on YouTube. And if you're looking for something a little bit more direct and a little bit more specific, then I definitely recommend booking a full one-on-one session with me. And you can go right onto my website, ElizabethApril.com, to book that session. And I do Skype sessions internationally. And no matter if you're right in front of me or halfway around the world, the information is still going to resonate. It's still going to be just as impactful. So if you are looking to kind of increase your vibration, get yourself to that next step in awakening, you definitely want to kind of check out my services, check out my website, and book a session.
Always a pleasure, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Your next date on this show will be August 1st. Right around the corner, August 1st. It's right there. I want to thank Elizabeth April for coming back on Spaced Out Radio. Her website, once again, is ElizabethApril.com. Everett Thiemer from The Encounter Online is going to be joining me next on hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to get into a little bit of a rant. Something happened today in Canadian politics that absolutely pissed me off. And I'm going to get into it with you coming up here on the Mighty SOR. And you know what? Whether you're American, Canadian, or wherever in between, you should be upset as well. We're going to get into that story and more. It might eat up the final hour, but I'm going to rant on because I need to. I need to vent about this. More Spaced Out Radio, hour number 3, coming up right after this. Hopefully you stick around. If not, well, we'll catch you tomorrow. Just like we will Elizabeth on April. Make that August 1st. Talk to you soon. Looking for a great weekend getaway this fall? Hi there, this is Dave Scott. Come on up to the heart of British Columbia for the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon, being held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Speakers from all over North America are coming to discuss Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and intuitiveness for the 3-day event, September 29th to October 1st. For more information, go to spacedoutradio.com and click on the Caribou Paracon banner and book your tickets today. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself.
Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you along for the ride tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow night on the program, Nick Redfern, acclaimed author, is going to join us. We're going to talk everything from black-eyed kids to UFOs, aliens, abductions, contact, and maybe even a little bit of Carl tomorrow. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. The brand new look spacedoutradio.com that launched today. Thank you, Tim from UFOseekers.com, helping us build the new website. It looks fantastic. I hope all of you are enjoying the new look as well. We are live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, Revolution Radio. If you're listening in on the Double R machine, that is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. 2 terrestrial stations as well, because we are growing. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, and the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, and that word is ignivomus. I just butchered that. It's so easy. Ignivomus. Maybe I didn't butcher it. Ignivomus. Ignivomus. I'm saying it differently each time. Damn it. Let's try it one more time. Ignivomus. There we go. Is your password for tonight. If you're a member of the SOR Space Travelers Club, make sure you use it wisely. Would really appreciate that. Don't get into trouble with it. It can be scary. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. Our website, with a brand new look, is spacedoutradio.com, where we still have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can check out all the action happening in our store. That is going to be growing very, very soon. Read up on the Encounter online as well. And speaking of the Encounter, Everett Thiemer and Eric Markham are here from the Encounter online. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hi, Dave. Hi, everybody.
All right. Now, I told you I was going to get into a rant. Normally, I don't do this. I don't do politics on this show. But I got to tell you, there are certain times old Davey here gets pissed off. Okay? So, in Canada, we have I'm going to say a 30-year-old man named Omar Khadr. Okay? Now, at 15 years old, Cotter decided to leave home and head to Afghanistan to fight for Al-Qaeda. Okay? He was a prisoner of war who pleaded guilty to killing a U.S. soldier by throwing hand grenades. For that, he spent 10 years in Guantanamo Bay. Good for him. Probably deserved it. Okay? So, our all-loving Prime Minister that the world gloats about, Mr. Justin Trudeau, decided to do a few things. See, our previous government, led by Stephen Harper, okay, reneged on Cotter's Canadian citizenship, saying, you don't deserve to be a Canadian. You are not welcome here. Well, a few months ago, our illustrious Prime Minister decided to say, no, Mr. Cotter, you can have your citizenship back. You're a citizen. You were born here. We know you had a tough time, and at 15, it's tough to make a decision. Okay? Well, today, our beloved Prime Minister decided to apologize publicly and offered this murderer and terrorist $10.5 million in retribution for taking away his citizenship and kicking him out of Canada. Because apparently we're forgiving like that. Now, I like Canada, okay? I like Canada. I love being from here. I like everything that my country represents. But I got to tell you, this pisses me off. This absolutely pisses me off that they would give $10.5 million to a terrorist of Canadian taxpayers' money, okay, because he was treated rough in Guantanamo Bay. Okay? He murdered someone as a terrorist. He is a terrorist. There is no amount of sorry when you decide to make that decision at 15 years old. I don't care how blindsided he was. I don't care how brainwashed he was by, whoever was training him. Okay? The fact is, he is a murderer. He is a terrorist. And now my bloody taxpayers' money is going to help this guy live the rich life. But you know what? There are soldiers up here, much like in the United States, there are soldiers up here who are suffering from PTSD who are killing themselves because of the heinous things that they saw in Afghanistan. The way people treat each other over there. We've had them speak on this show during our Remembrance Day shows. This, to me, is an absolutely disgusting ploy of governmental waste of spending that I have ever heard of. Canadians all over and other politicians are going haywire over this. Now, I realize Canada is a forgiving country. We overlook a lot because we want everybody to get along, and I'm fine with that. Okay, I had no problem. While you guys were talking down in the States, we're talking about building a wall. I had no problem with helping Syrian families, or my taxpayers' money helping Syrian families come here to get a better life because they wanted their children to grow up with a future. I had no problem with that. I'm a pretty open guy. I'm a pretty forgiving guy. All right? But I can tell you this. As ugly as the torture that was happening in Guantanamo Bay, and that's been proven, was happening. Okay? It doesn't matter. This man is a terrorist. That is scum. Think about it. They're killing you and me because of our beliefs. People who are psychic, they're on the hit list. Gay people on the hit list. Christians, Catholics on the hit list. Because you're a woman and you have a career or a job, you're on the hit list. That's what this terrorist organization is about. And apparently in Canada, it's okay, because we'll forgive you because you said I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I'm surprised he only spent 10 years in Guantanamo.
Well, you know what? Andrew brings up a point here in the chat room, and Andrew says, you're trusting George W. Bush's prosecution that he was guilty like it's gospel. I don't know about that. Cotter admitted in a Canadian court that he did it. Okay? Cotter admitted in a Canadian court that he did it.
Did he ever renounce his Canadian citizenship, or
no, he did not. No, he did not. Here's a story from the Canadian press, and I'm going to read it verbatim here. The Canadian government is going to apologize and give millions to a former Guantanamo Bay prisoner who pleaded guilty to killing a U.S. soldier in Afghanistan when he was 15, with Canada's Supreme Court later ruling that officials had interrogated him under oppressive circumstances. An official familiar with the deal said Tuesday that Omar Cotter will receive $10.5 million. The official was not authorized to discuss the deal publicly before the announcement and spoke on the condition of anonymity. The government and Cotter's lawyers negotiated the deal last month. The Canadian-born Cotter was 15 when he was captured by U.S. troops following a firefight at a suspected al-Qaeda compound in Afghanistan that resulted in the death of an American Special Forces medic, U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Christopher Speer. Cotter, who was suspected of throwing the grenade that killed Speer, was taken to Guantanamo and ultimately charged with war crimes by a military commission. He pleaded guilty in 2010 to charges that included murder and was sentenced to 8 years plus the time he had already spent in custody. He returned to Canada 2 years later to serve the remainder of his sentence and was released in May 2015 pending an appeal of his guilty plea, which he said was made under duress. Omar Cotter spent 10 years in Guantanamo Bay. His case received international attention after some dubbed him a child soldier. All right? So there's that part.
Forgive me for my ignorance of Canadian law, but if a child, a 15-year-old kid, were to commit a crime in Vancouver or Toronto, do your prosecutors have the opportunity or the option to charge them as an adult if it's a particularly heinous crime?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Then, as far as I'm concerned, this would qualify as a heinous crime that he had been convicted of, and he should, I don't know, he doesn't deserve anything.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Here's the thing. Okay, take the murder and everything out of it. Let's just take that away for a minute. Okay? Take the murder out of it. He is still a terrorist. He is still blindsided by the religious doctrine that led him to kill anybody who is Western. He still went over there to kill Americans, Canadians, journalists, whoever is serving there. That to me is not worth $10 million. Okay? Now, can a 15-year-old kid make that decision? Can we say that a 15-year-old kid is smart enough to make that decision after religious brainwashing that led him to this? Okay?
I wasn't at 15.
Now, speaking to journalists in Ireland, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau would not comment on the settlement. He says there is a judicial process underway that has been underway for a number of years now, and we are anticipating, like I think a number of people are, that the judicial process is coming to its conclusion. You gave him his citizenship back after it was pulled. That tells you everything that the Bleeding Hearts are going to give him, everything that he wants. You know, I would love to be his lawyer. You know, and the sad part is, okay, this is former Conservative Defense Minister of Canada, Jason Kennedy, who's now leader of Alberta's Progressive Conservative Party. He said, confessed terrorist who assembled and planted the same kind of IED that killed 97 Canadians to be given $10 million. Odious. Right? Others praise the government apology, saying it's long overdue. Finally, we have seen the light, wrote Shelley Whitman, executive director of the Romeo Dallaire Child Soldiers Initiative. Okay? You still went over there. Your parents let you go over there. Your parents let you go over there. You weren't smuggled. Okay? Your parents let you go. By the way, Spears' widow, Tabitha Spears, plans on going after that money. And I hope she gets it. I have no problem paying
And she should.
I have no problem paying her. Okay? Take the murder out of it. Take the entire murder out of the scenario. We have soldiers who cannot get prosthetics because there isn't enough money. So they say. Yet we're giving this terrorist $10 million. Okay?
You know, I can understand the idea of religious indoctrination of a child. And maybe to a certain degree that can explain a small part of his actions. But he still, in my view, he still has to accept responsibility. He did it, and he admitted he did it. So I can't understand.
Now he's claiming the whole duress card, the under duress card. Okay? So he said the only reason why he pleaded guilty in Guantanamo is a return for a chance to serve his sentence in Canada. Because our justice system's a bloody joke here. Right? So, I don't...
You know what? If you're a terrorist and you're questioned under duress, I don't have that much of a problem with it.
Neither do I. You deserve it. Okay? You deserve it.
I mean, I understand that civil rights and human rights, to a certain degree, regardless of your situation, you are entitled to them. But, you know, if you've done something like that or you're suspected of being a terrorist, I don't have a problem with pushing the envelope a little bit. And if that causes you a little duress, well, you know, there's a lot of terrorists out there that cause a lot of innocent people a whole heck of a lot of duress.
Mm-hmm. I agree. You know, I am just absolutely dumbfounded because, you know, this guy who, and I'm going to tell you point blank, I voted for Justin Trudeau. I did. Okay? And the reason why I voted for him, because I thought, here's a guy who is 44 years old or 43 years old at the time. It's time to get some new blood in Ottawa. And his message was quite refreshing, especially about that people are equal. And I like that. Okay? But, and, you know, and I'll give you another point. Bob Davis brings up a good point. A lot of the reason why Justin Trudeau was voted in was because he said he was going to legalize cannabis immediately for people who needed it. Okay? Now it's not until about 2018 or so, because they got to figure out a way to tax it, right? So this guy, you know, the rest of the world says, oh, what a martyr this guy is. Okay? You don't have to live here. You guys complain down south about Donald Trump. Okay, we are giving a terrorist $10.5 million and his citizenship back because he blew up an American soldier, allegedly. How screwed up is that? I got friends who have served in Afghanistan. I got friends who suffer from PTSD. I got friends who saw a lot of heinous stuff. Stuff they won't even talk about. And to see that my friends are getting nothing, they're struggling to find jobs and other careers because the nightmares keep them awake at night. Okay? And they're getting nothing. In fact, some veterans have even got their pensions cut back, or buyouts. I don't know how you put a buyout on somebody who's willing to give their life for a flag and the country and the people who serve in it and who live in it. But this guy's an idiot. You know, I'm usually not about calling politicians idiots because they have a tough job. I mean, if they're not bought off or anything, you know, they have a tough job. But this is so blatantly simple. He's a terrorist. And you know what? It opens the door to other terrorists and terrorism. Okay? It opens the door that people can just come on in here and do what they want. Okay? I'm not going to open up the Pandora's box of my other political feelings towards this Pandora's box, because I literally will go off on a rant, and I'll be honest with you, I'll probably lose some listenership about it, let alone being called racist, even though I'm not, so I'm not going to play that card. I refuse to play that card for the political correctors out there. Okay?
Well, if you're not going to open up that box, you just got rid of every question I wanted to ask.
Well,
but seriously,
No, I think it can be discussed without opening up a box. I mean, I think back when you were 15 and how stupid you could be. You know, now I'm probably the last guy to accept. Now, I don't think the kid should have got any $10 million. And I still think there's something fishy because he didn't walk there. Somebody ponied up a lot of money to get his butt to the theater of combat. So there's more questions. But I can see maybe at least giving him his citizenship back on a trial basis. You screw up again, and we're going to put you in a dungeon so deep you don't get sunlight. But to give him $10 million, that's just insanely ridiculous.
I agree.
What, can you speculate on what do you think Trudeau's motivation is for this? Is it a political thing? Is it...
You know what? He honestly believes that Canada can be a good example of how the world should operate in a globalist, loving, peaceful way, by social acceptance of absolutely everyone, of every faith, of every gender. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I really am okay with that. I do have some issues. Okay? I'm a firm believer that, you know what, if me as a Canadian and I move down to the United States, there are certain things I have to learn about the United States that I have to respect. Yet that respect does not seem to equate here. You know, if somebody you're making me, damn it, you're making me open that Pandora's box.
Well, I just wanted to ask, if you're going to, I can understand accepting everybody or every faith, every creed of person, but this is an exception. This is a criminal. I mean, even, you know, most countries will not accept people who are convicted criminals in other countries as citizens. Now, I understand that he is or was a citizen of Canada, but why? I don't understand why he's doing this. You can accept everybody or every ideal, but still not accept the people who have been proven to be dangerous or bad. Or to me, this opens up the door of a lot of people flocking to Canada.
Absolutely it does. And he's willing to open up the door. Okay? He's willing to open up the door. Okay? Ron has a good point here. He says, so when is a soldier killing another soldier in battle considered a murder charge? That's a great question. I guess when it happens to an American soldier. No offense, U.S. soldiers. Okay? I'm taking the murder out of this conversation. Okay? Let's take the whole murder or the death of the soldier out of this equation. The fact that this soldier, okay, this Omar Khadr, okay, at 15 years old, left home, and ended up becoming a terrorist. As Shar states, it's a slap in the face for all soldiers paying off a terrorist because we feel bad. We feel bad.
Well, I don't think you can call him a soldier.
No, well, you got to look. Okay, now let's look back at how. Okay, before the U.S. got involved in either World War, we had Americans volunteering to fight in the Spanish, and there were American squadrons helping the British. Now, if you're on the other side, you're not at war with the U.S. Do you consider those men that are flying airplanes against you under, another nation's colors, are they soldiers or are they terrorists? I know as the veteran, I'm probably not the guy you expected to bring that up, but...
Okay, but as the veteran, I'll ask you this question then. The Geneva Convention set out the rules for what is considered, basically the rules of war, and isn't part of that what is actually considered a soldier? And terrorist organizations don't fall under the protection or the title of technically being a soldier.
Yeah, we tend to follow the Geneva Convention, the articles, whether, no matter who we're fighting, whether they do or not, to show a moral high ground. But still, like I said, I don't think a 15-year-old, I don't know, I'm trying to imagine 15-year-old all hyped up on being one of, supposedly Allah's soldiers and all this. So you could almost forgive him for being brainwashed. But there comes a point where you took life and you're accountable for that. And you don't get $10 million for killing somebody.
Okay, but hold on a second here. I'll agree. And I'll play devil's advocate here for a second. I'll agree. He was doing his job as a soldier. Terrorist soldier, yes. Okay? He was still doing his job fighting the enemy, where at this point it was a Special Forces Marine Brigade, and I apologize if I screwed up on the terminology. Okay? But the whole point is, he's still a terrorist. And the fact that our court system here in Canada is feeling bad for him, the fact that our great members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have to protect his ass, okay, the fact that we have soldiers who are suffering from PTSD and other issues, health-related, because of the conflict in the Middle East, it still doesn't solve the fact that he decided the minute he got on that plane and got smuggled out of Canada to go join Al-Qaeda, okay, he made a choice. Did his parents allow him? Who knows?
They must. Where does a 15-year-old come up with the thousands of dollars it takes to fly around the world like that? Somebody gave that kid money.
Absolutely, somebody gave him money. Absolutely,
parents, aunt, uncle, your mom from the, that I think the more important question, one of the important questions is, how did he get there? And I think if I was in the government, I'd be wanting to prosecute the person that brainwashed him and then ponied up the money to get him over to the other side of the world.
Dominique has a great point in the chat room. She says, he comes from a family of terrorists. They immigrated to Canada and became citizens as terrorists. It's a disgrace.
Wow. Now that's background I didn't know.
Yes, Cotter's father apparently threatened to kill him, period. His father was a high-ranking terrorist. And this is a widely known fact. Okay.
How were they allowed to even immigrate there if they were known terrorists?
Because we allow everybody. We take people at their word, man. We take people at their word. And apparently apologies for serving for a terrorist organization is worth $10.5 million. Let me tell you what's worth $10.5 million. I would love to see that $10.5 million go to help some of our soldiers who are actually protecting our asses from these people, using, at times, antiquated technology because our government over the last 20 years, besides our snipers, which are #1 in the world, sorry America, okay?
Rub it in.
I plan on it. 2.5 miles, my friend, 2.5 miles, right? But the whole point is, we have a lot of our soldiers going over there without the proper gear. And they're putting their lives on the line. Okay? They're putting their lives on the line. And they're coming back with serious problems. We have people committing suicide. Not as much as what's happening down south. Okay? But we have people committing suicide because of what they saw over there. People with lifelong nightmares that they are going to turn to drugs, to alcohol. People who are losing their families because the family cannot understand the intensity of what that person is going through. And you give a terrorist $10 million, his citizenship, and say, I'm sorry, Canada is sorry, here you come back in. Screw you. I'm not proud to be Canadian today. I am not proud to be Canadian. That does not make me a happy Canadian. Okay? It does not make me a happy Canadian that my taxpayer money is funding this. You know what? I have friends who are First Nations who cannot get paved roads here on their reservations. Can't get paved roads. But we're going to give this idiot $10 million because we feel bad because he was caught as a terrorist. Right?
Why is... I don't know exactly how to ask this, so I'll just spit it out. If you guys in Canada are going to give him $10 million, why isn't Canada saying something to the United States that, you know, this is what you should be doing? We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't have to, you know, give him money because he was questioned under duress. You guys should be doing it. Why?
Because our Prime Minister is not a man. Okay? He feels he is fully of the people, for the people. Okay?
Well, then he should fight for the people, and if he's bound and determined to give this guy that money, let him put the blame on whoever this guy is saying, you know, did these wrongs to him. If it's in Guantanamo, then you know what? Maybe, and I'm probably opening my mouth to insert my foot, but maybe he should go after the United States government then. Not Canada.
Yeah, he's making a political move to show he's pulling on Obama. He's doing something to make him, you know, for the optics of it, not because he probably doesn't give a, to be honest, he's a politician. He probably doesn't give a rat's butt about the kid or what he did. It's just it's a way of saying, look how cool I am. That's my read on it.
Yeah, but you know what? He could give this guy his citizenship back, and he could make a statement. I mean, I know Canadians are pretty polite, but certainly come out in public and say, something to the United States about he agrees with this kid's or this guy's situation and statements, and he thinks the United States government owes him this money, and let's do it with the U.S. government. Why is Canada ponying up the money?
Because we're wimps that way. We are wimps that way. We roll over at any sign of political correctness. If you want to get away with murder, be politically correct in Canada. They accept apologies. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I'm reading Justin Trudeau's Twitter account right now, and there is nothing on this. I'm going to former Prime Minister Stephen Harper here, who has not tweeted in regards to this. Everybody is silent on this because I think we're all in bloody shock for what has actually gone on here. But this is just... I want to swear. I want to swear so bad right now. But here we have, you know, terrestrial radio stations where that's just not a good thing to do. It's just not a good thing to do. So I am kind of upset by this. And I'm using my platform as host of this show. Okay? I'm using my platform to say how pissed off I am to be a Canadian today. And I was looking forward to today because all of my American friends are celebrating.
Well, you know, I don't think we can include you now because we see how Canada supports terrorists.
I understand that. I fully, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I mean, how the hell does anybody take us seriously now? How do you take us seriously? It's ridiculous. Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
It is absolutely BS. Right? It is absolutely BS. It is disgusting. And for the first time ever in my life, I am embarrassed to be Canadian. Except maybe when we lost in the 1998 Nagano Olympics, didn't even make the medal round in hockey. That was embarrassing. But this trumps that. No pun intended. Right?
I wonder how many more kids there are like him.
Oh, my God, yeah. I think it's sending out a terrible message. You've got people that are already emotionally underdeveloped, and then you put this whole, the possibility of a reward. I think wherever one person does it, somebody else is going to try their hand at it too. So
what I see is,
I want to bring this up, guys. I want to bring this up here because Ronald in the chat room brings up a good point here. Okay, he goes, "I don't agree with the amount of money, but would you put a 16-year-old in Guantanamo prison?" Okay, it's just like I don't agree when we see. Okay, and we've seen this in the United States where you're putting a 14-year-old kid life in prison without parole. Okay, because he shot his best friend, playing with a gun or something along those lines. We've seen it happen. Okay, I'm not trying to be a bleeding heart here. Okay, a 16-year-old kid probably should not have went to Guantanamo. But on the flip side, you're a criminal. You're a terrorist criminal. Why should you have any rights? The minute you signed up for a terrorist organization, whether your family accepted it or not, you gave up your rights. I mean, you gave up your territorial rights, your country rights, and absolutely every type of right because you want to party like it's 1699 again. Okay?
The other thing is, this is war. It's not a kid stealing a car, and maybe he shouldn't go into the general population because he's just a kid and he's going to, be badly influenced by the older adult inmates. This is war where you don't have time to sort things and play nice all the time. It's a situation where you grab them, you take them, if they're terrorist soldiers, if that's what you want to call them, you apprehend them and you put them in a jail. It's not a situation where you go, well, this one only did this, and this one's this age, and this one's just got indoctrinated. You have to grab them all, and unfortunately, well, I don't want to say unfortunately, because these things happen, but he had to have known something like that could happen from the minute he decided to join this group.
Hey, someone's phone is getting very bad on this side. There you go. Thank you. I agree with you, Everett. Okay, there are, in my opinion, sure, there's the Geneva Convention and everything that people who are civilized have to fight by, but these are terrorists. There's nothing civilized. I mean, we've heard the nightmares that Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, he did 4 tours of duty. Okay, some of the nightmare stories that he told us about, I can just imagine what he hasn't told us about. Okay? The fact is, some of those stories are horrendous. All right?
Yes, they are.
Absolutely. Yes. They are horrendous. I mean, listen to Eric Cooper on this show. We will get him back on to talk about this, about how they would hang steel wires to try and take off half the body of an American soldier. You know what? Eric will tell you point blank, that's war. That's what happens in war. War is ugly. And I've never served. I've never been in a wartime situation, and God bless me if I hope I never have to, or my children never have to be put in that situation. Okay? But I can tell you this. He gave up his rights by signing on with Al-Qaeda. He gave up his rights. Okay? John in the chat room, I hope Dave isn't a neocon. What the hell is a neocon? Let's talk English here.
No, he's not, John. He's not.
No.
I'm closer to it than he is.
What's a neocon?
A neocon is somebody who's like a completely right-wing, super conservative, build a wall around the country and shoot everything that's not lily white.
If you paid attention,
you're not a Lewick.
If you paid attention, you heard me saying clearly that I'm okay with the Syrian refugees coming over. Okay? But as a Canadian, I do have questions. Namely, let's get to the Syrian refugees for a minute. I have no problem with them coming over. We took in 25,000 people. Okay, and our Prime Minister stood there and said, welcome home. I'm okay with that. Okay, I do have a problem, though, when the top 5 richest Muslim nations refuse to take a single refugee. Why is it my taxpayers' responsibility? Canada wasn't in Syria. Yet in the Quran does it not state to take care of the brethren? Yet the 5 richest Muslim nations didn't take one. Okay?
It's an excellent point.
Okay? I have no problem bringing over families who have gone through hell because of terrorism to come on over to Canada. We have plenty of room. Okay? In Canada, we have 2.1 people per square mile. You go to Hong Kong, there's 8,700 people per square mile. We have 2.1. We have plenty of room. I am more than happy if we have people coming over here. Okay, in my town, we have a big African contingent here. People coming over here with the help of the church, okay, who are doctors, okay, who are trying to get practices. You know what? Up in my area, doctors don't want to come here because the money is less. Okay? or they don't want to be cold because they grew up in Vancouver, where it's a mild climate. All right? So we're short doctors in the north of British Columbia. Okay? If a Syrian refugee comes over and he's a doctor, by all means, come on in. We need you. Come on in. Doors open. But if you are a terrorist, big difference between a doctor and a terrorist. If you are a terrorist, you don't deserve the privilege of being in Canada. All right? You don't deserve the privilege. It's a privilege for immigrants to come here. It's not a right. And that's the problem that our Prime Minister has. He thinks it's a right. It's a privilege. I am very, very proud to be a Canadian. I have the Canadian flag tattooed on my body. All right? I'm very happy about that. Except for 1998 in the Nagano Olympics where we didn't even get to the medal round. Okay, I'm still pissed off at that. I won't let that one go 20 years later.
That's a show in itself.
It was embarrassing, and Mark Crawford should have put Wayne Gretzky in the shootout instead of Ray Bourque. Terrible move. Terrible move. But that's it for a different topic on a different night. We'll get into that next year when it's a 20th anniversary around February, and I can rip into Mark Crawford for that. Right? Then I'll tell you about the time where he ripped me in a press conference. Anyways.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny because we've discussed me immigrating to Canada, and as an American who would want to try to immigrate to Canada, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. So I'd be better off getting a plane ticket to Syria, and then I can come in without all the paperwork, right? That's what it seems like.
I blame soccer here. I blame soccer. No, I'm kidding. Not really, but somewhat.
Yeah.
Don't kid about soccer.
No, you're right.
Don't even talk
Hooliganism.
about soccer.
Hooliganism is what it is. Right? I don't know. I'm
what do you
pissed
think
off
this
about
is going to do to? What do you think this is going to do to Trudeau's re-election chances?
I'll tell you right now, he will lose the West. Okay? Give me an example. This is the kind of idiot we have in as our Prime Minister. And I voted for him. I'm man enough to say I voted for him and I was wrong. All right? This is the kind of guy we have. Last year, the town of Fort McMurray, well, the city of Fort McMurray in northern Alberta, where a lot of our oil comes from, was surrounded by forest fires. Much of the town actually burned. Our illustrious Prime Minister said, there is no benefit for me going to Fort McMurray. I should stay in Ottawa. Yet in his beloved Quebec earlier this year, one of the towns was being flooded, and there he is for the press helping shovel sandbags. Right?
Nothing like a photo op.
Exactly. Okay? This guy is a moron. And I don't like using that term because I never wanted to see Canada turn into what we've seen American politics turn into. Okay? Because I don't like it. I think it's disgusting. Okay? And now you're paying off $10 million in taxpayers' money to a terrorist. Who won? How about cutting my taxes? I'm at 43% tax, Justin. How about cutting my taxes? Okay? How about throwing that money? How about throwing that money into the healthcare system that we're so proud of up here to cut down on the waiting lines? Okay? How about that?
Seems like $10 million could buy an awful lot of prosthetics and provide some mental health care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it wouldn't solve it all, but it would make it'd put at least get a start.
right? It's terrible. We're apologizing to a terrorist? Go to hell, man. I'm not doing that. That's not my apology. It's not Canadians' apology. Okay? You know what the problem with Canada is? We are so blind here. Okay? We are so blind by how good we have it in this country that we think, oh, it could never happen here because we're Canadian. Everybody likes us. Everybody wants to be one of us. What happens when it does happen here? What happens when that happens? What happens when if a bomb goes off, okay, and yes, all the tinfoilers will be yelling false flag, okay, that's for another debate, okay, but what happens when you're sitting at a Toronto Blue Jays game at the Rogers Centre and a bomb goes off in the stands? What happens when you're at a Vancouver Canucks game in Vancouver at Rogers Arena, and all of a sudden a bomb goes off or somebody breaks down the door shooting with AK-47s? What happens?
And you're always just a second away from that. And look at England with the concerts and then the smaller terrorist acts and the people running people over in cars. And so you can sit there and think that you're all safe and everything's fine and warm. But in reality, you're always just a second or two away from something like that.
Exactly. And you know what? I'll tell you one thing, though. The one thing that I do love about Canada is we don't live in a paranoid land. And I think that's what a lot of our politicians have been trying to say. Let's not get paranoid here. Let's understand the rise of concern, but let's not get paranoid where we start making rash decisions. Example, the Patriot Act. Okay? Because I'm sure we can agree that thing's full of crap as well. Okay?
Yeah.
All right? We don't need that here. But I can tell you this. You don't go pay a terrorist $10 million. That's just beyond belief.
I honestly don't know how to rationalize that.
There's no way to rationalize it. That's just going to go down in history as one of the most absurd political statements ever performed by a politician, I think.
Do you think,
anyway.
I hesitate to ask this, and I kind of am joking, but do you think there are enough terrorist voters in Canada that he did this to buy their vote?
I once had a politician friend of mine tell me this. He said, if I relied on the Caucasian vote, I'd never be elected. Because white people, or Caucasian people, are so pissed off with the system and the catering to so many minorities that they've stopped voting. So if you can win over the minority vote, you're elected. That's plain and simple.
So this is just a maneuvering for the next election, you think?
Well, he won't win the West. He will not win the West. Maybe in Vancouver where they got a bunch of bleeding hearts there. Okay? He won't win in Alberta, Saskatchewan, or Manitoba, but he'll take probably Quebec because he is French and from Quebec, and he might get half of Ontario because of the bleeding hearts in Toronto. Right?
Now, does your election go like by popular vote, or do you have something like the Electoral College like we have down here?
No, we are still on a monarchist way, which means whatever party gets elected, the leader of that party becomes the prime minister. So we don't actually have a full choice of who the prime minister is. It's whoever the leader of that party is, right?
Oh, okay. You vote in a party and then you get okay.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's a lot of people, like, I don't care how many planking situation photos he can be in, or you know, whatever, okay? I don't care what good a shape he is in or what kind of a boxer or how handsome he is, okay? He just gave $10.5 million to a terrorist, Canada. You should be disgusted. And if you support it, Instead of standing behind our troops, stand in front of them. Okay? Stand in front of them. Tell them to their face. Tell them to their face why you agree that a terrorist who is throwing grenades at the people who are protecting us should get $10.5 million. I would like to see $10.5 million worth of bleeding hearts having to travel to Afghanistan to stand in front of our soldiers who are in 150-degree heat right now, protecting people who need protection, looking for IEDs, putting their lives on the line every day. Makes me mad. Makes me real mad. Damn it, Canada, you piss me off. I don't get it, but that's just the way it is. Gentlemen, thank you for letting me rant.
Oh, it's always fun to listen to you.
Ugh. Yeah. You know, I hate getting political, man. I hate getting political. Drives
Sometimes
me nuts.
you have to, though.
Well, you know what? That one just pissed me off. Just pissed me off. I didn't know what to do. I'm going to get you guys to hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. If you're listening in on the Spaced Out Radio side, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official music of SOR. He rocks us in and out of every single show right here, right now. We want to thank everyone for tuning on in tonight. And our guest for the first 2 hours, Elizabeth April. She is amazing. She comes on the show every month, the first Tuesday of the month. Tomorrow night on the program, Nick Redfern is going to join us. We're getting into the aliens. Finally, something more comfortable. Aliens, black-eyed kids, abductions, contact, conspiracy. I absolutely love it. It's going to be a fun show, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time. I want to thank my team. Everett Thiemer, Eric Markham from The Encounter Online. From UFOseekers.com, Tim Doyle. Kim Gandy, our Director of Business Development. Bob Davis, our intro voice. Jolene Lammers, Web Design. Catherine James, Social Media. Thomas McGowan, Sales. And our Paracon Coordinator, Lana Scott, for being as part of my team. Love you all. And the main mention goes to all of you in the chat rooms and on Twitter. You do a great job in spreading the word, sharing the love. We will see you all tomorrow night. And together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in exactly 21 hours from now. I hope you come back, and I hope you spread the word as well. Let's do this thing, man. 21 hours. I'm here. Are you? I hope you are. We'll talk to you then. Mr. Bumblefoot, do me a favor. Take us home.